this building and this setting is about as Mad Max as it gets. So I thought I'd paint a Mad Max sort of picture scenario and maybe possibly see how I could be creative enough to utilize this structure as some sort of shelter. So in this scenario, let's say that I was on the other side of that mountain over there, and that's where I lived. And let's say, for some reason, chaos broke out, bombs have dropped, whatever it is, and safety lies way over here, and I've got friends that live 100 miles that direction, whatever it may be. Could this be some sort of place where I could lay up for a little while, rest up, possibly, and shelter to keep myself out of the elements for a little bit? And it is a shelter in and of itself. It's a little bit sheltered from the wind. It's sheltered from the rain. Not that that's a big problem out here, but it would be a pretty solid place to shelter up that's already here and existing, and I could hide out. No one would really know that I'm here. And in a situation where chaos has ensued in civilization, and this is about as far away from civilization as you could ask to be, there's probably not going to be anybody coming out here. The priorities are going to be higher unless for some reason somebody has exactly the same plan as I do. The number one problem with being here is that there's no water. Zero water to be had. In the distance, I can see some water. There's some cattle in this area, and there's some reservoirs where they water their cattle. And I've seen on the way out here, driving on the trails, I've passed a couple watering tanks and things that I could possibly dip into and replenish my water supplies. And I could carry, in a side-by-side, I could carry probably easily 25 gallons of water comfortably. But that's about the extent of it. So you need to carry all the water you need, or you need to be thinking ahead. And if this is my plan, if this is my bug out plan, maybe I could cache some water supplies out here. Possibly rig up some sort of rain catchment. Not that it rains a lot here, but I could possibly just bring jerry cans of water out here, bury them underground, and then cycle those out from time to time, once or twice a year. I think that might be some sort of solution to our problem if we were going to have to stay here for any amount of time. One huge advantage of this location right here is that this is the high ground, the highest ground around, besides those mountains way over there, obviously. And I could see 360 degrees all the way around me. It would be extremely difficult for someone to sneak up on me, especially with any kind of vehicle. I would hear it coming, I could see it coming, no problem. If I'm by myself and I have to sleep, that's a little bit different scenario, but let's assume I'm not alone. But the high ground here is definitely a big advantage, and there's multiple ways off of this as well. I'm not limited to one funnel. These plastic Scepter jerry cans are bomb-proof. They're super sturdy. They last a long time. You can bang around in the back of the truck. It could fall out of the truck. It'd probably still be okay. So you could potentially bury 10 of these things out here or more. Bury them in the ground. Make sure you can seal it really, really well so no one comes across. Because obviously people come out here in the good times that we're in now. People come out here and they have the free time to spray paint and graffiti all over the walls. Come out here and party, I guess. So I wouldn't want someone discovering it during the good times. So when the bad times come, it'll still be here for me. So you can see snow in the distance, and that's where the water is going to be. All of the water that comes off these mountains is from the snow melt, essentially. Very little bit of rain happens out here. So all the water is going to be flowing off those mountains, and that's where all the people are. It's where they currently are, and that's where they always will be, regardless of good times or bad times. You have to be where the water is. So I can either go there to replenish my water supplies, right? But that's in this scenario, that's where I came from. So now I'm on my way. There is a small watering hole off in the distance over here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on camera, but I'll try to show it. Small watering hole where they probably water their cattle. But again, that's where the people are. And if in this situation, in this scenario, we're trying to avoid people, predators will always be at the watering holes, just like in Africa. That's where the lions wait to ambush their prey. That's where the crocodiles lie in wait, right? That's where the prey is going to be. So what we've got to do is be really, really cautious if we do have to replenish our water supply. If we're going from a safe location to another safe location, safe as it gets, I would highly suggest that you cache water along the way. If you live in an arid environment like this, water is life. If you can't carry it all with you, you need to cache it along your route if that's your plan. If you want to avoid problems with people, you need to take the path of most resistance. Everyone's going to stick to the main highways, the main roads. That's where everyone's going to be, and that's where all the problems are going to be. But if you're going to take the path of most resistance, you need to be prepared for it. You need to anticipate how much fuel that you're going to need if you're relying upon a machine to get you from A to B. You need to have a basic toolkit so you can make some small repairs. Obviously, if you break a major component, you're probably going to be out of luck. You can only anticipate so much. Make sure you've got first aid kits and just basic survival kits with you, survival gear, so you can fend for yourself if bad weather should come in. And now, inevitably, things are going to go wrong on a trip such as this. And you should be able to anticipate those things going wrong, such as the vehicle breaking down and you being on foot. If that's the case in this area, and you're talking about water, you're going to be in trouble. You need to be able to carry as much water as possible. And let's say I've got to just get to those mountains right there. Those mountains are probably about 15 miles away, maybe a little less, maybe 10 miles away. And I could walk that with very minimal water. I could probably, because it's maybe not hot outside right now, but in the middle of summer here, it could be really, really hot, and I could be burning up and just burning through hydration just trying to walk that distance. So I might go through a lot of water. And how am I going to carry that water? Let's say it's further than that. Let's say I've got to walk 50 miles. It's going to take me a couple days. My survival kit that I would bring would probably just be an Alice pack with a 5-gallon jerry can of water on it. And I really don't need a whole lot more other than that in the middle of the summer here. You just need something to shelter you from the sun, wind perhaps, and a lot of water. I wouldn't want to build fires probably in this situation because, again, people will see that. And if you're trying to avoid people, trying to stay under the radar, fires are going to attract people. But dressing appropriately, that's going to be a big one. Make sure you're dressed appropriately for the weather. For this environment, the sun is the big one. So long sleeves all the way across, covering yourself up. A big wide brim hat would be a good idea. Neck gaiter to keep dust and stuff out of your face. Keep the sun off of the back of your neck and your ears and such. Now, would this be a real option for me? Is this something, if I lived on the other side of those mountains, would this be the place that I would stop? Maybe, maybe not. I think more likely I'd probably pick some sort of little isolated little canyon, little cave over here somewhere where I could hide out. That wouldn't be so obvious. You know, anybody riding by to here will see this structure and perhaps just get curious and go check it out. Now, in this situation, you just have to weigh out your options. Is it safer to take more major roads, actual roads, paved roads, where there's going to be a lot more people? Or is it safer to travel across this desolate landscape where you've got no resupply, perhaps, and you're going to be on your own? Should you stay or should you go in the first place? Those are all things that need to be taken into consideration. So in this Mad Max scenario, the desert would be a tough place to be. And that's one reason why I choose not to live in the desert as my full-time residence. That's just, without water, life is hard. It's next to impossible to grow vegetables, grow your crops out here without some sort of irrigation system. It's going to be really, really tough just because it does not rain. And that's going to be your number one enemy. People and water. That's going to be tough. I hope you enjoyed this little scenario here, guys. I really appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about this scenario. Would this be a viable option? Is this a good place to settle in for a day or two if you've got to rest up on a long trek across the desert to avoid the crazy? See you next time. Those mountains in the distance is where I'm going to try to get to.